Welcome to Design Patterns. My name is Steve Holzner. I'll be your instructor, and I've been involved with design patterns for a long time. Also the author of Design Patterns for Dummies, and let's start talking about design patterns right now. These patterns are solutions to common software problems, such as you encounter a particular problem and you don't have to reinvent the wheel anymore. The design patterns can often come to one's rescue and show you the solution, the correct solution for any particular issue, and these are often object-oriented programming problems, as we're going to see. For example, you might have two objects that fit together, interface together, and this is an old object, and this is a receptacle that takes old objects, for example, and the interface is designed so that the old object can work with the old object receptacle here, as you see, and then something changes, and what happens is you have old objects still, and then on the other hand the receptacle is changed so that it only takes new objects. So the interface is changed, as you see here. And the problem is, how do you handle this issue? And this is one of the simplest of the design patterns. It's called the adapter pattern. And what happens is you just simply change this picture so that an old object now locks into an adapter object, as you see here. The adapter object fits between the old object and the new receptacle, which only takes new objects like this, as you see here. And so this is an example of a very simple design pattern called the adapter pattern, and it allows you to interface old objects with new objects using an adapter. The adapter connects old objects on this side and new receptacles on this side. So as you see, the situation fits together without any reprogramming of old objects or of the new receptacle there. And that's one example. It's a very simple example of the adapter pattern at work, and that's the kind of situation we're going to be dealing with. We have a problem, which is that the old object no longer fits, as you see, with a new object receptacle, and you can fix that problem with the adapter design pattern, as you see here. So design patterns are designed to let you not have to reinvent the wheel. You can just slap a design pattern into place, and they take into account very good programming practices as well. So design patterns are going to be helpful for any object-oriented programmer. Here's another example. So you're designing a website which has a welcome page, a store page, and then a purchase page and a goodbye page. So the person visiting your website comes to the welcome page, then goes to the store page and makes a purchase, perhaps goes back to the store page, makes another purchase, and then finally leaves with a goodbye page. As you see, there's a lot of interaction between these pages, and that all has to be connected. If you're doing it this way, you have to send signals back and forth or route the customer between the welcome and the purchase page, the welcome and the store page, and the goodbye page, and so forth. So you've got a lot of different connections here between all these objects, between all these web pages, and that can get very complex, especially if you have a more articulated example with more web pages. And in this kind of a case, the mediator design pattern comes into play. Can use a mediator object here, which simplifies the connection between all these different types. The welcome page interfaces with the mediator, the store page does, the goodbye page does, and the purchase page does as well. The mediator object is part of the mediator design pattern. The idea here is that it handles all the routing in your system between these various pages without them having to specifically know about each other. So the welcome page, for example, can then go onto the purchase page or the store page or the goodbye page, and the mediator handles the actual routing. So no longer have you had to distribute your routing code over all the different pages and then have to update it as needed. Instead, you can use the mediator object to mediate between these various pages, and the situation becomes a lot simpler. So as you see, these design patterns are somewhat abstractions that let you withdraw, step back a little bit from the problem, solve the problem by using a new architecture of sorts and implementing that new architecture and making life a lot simpler for you. And if you are familiar with these design patterns, you're going to be able to face a particular programming problem, and say, aha, that's a solution for the strategy design pattern, for example, and you implement the strategy design pattern, and then you can move forward, and things have got a lot smoother. So instead of having to As I've been saying, instead of having to reinvent the wheel, you'll be able to see how to solve very common design problems, object-oriented design problems with these design patterns. And in time, as you get more familiar with these patterns, they will spring to mind automatically as soon as a particular issue arises. So let's start with the course and get involved with design pattern